Hey guys, Buckeye Bar Guys. We wanted to thank you guys for tuning in to us here on Buckeye Bar Talk. Great show we got coming up today. We're really looking forward to you guys listening and watching it. But just wanted to remind everybody, just remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the all notifications bell, and that way, anytime a new show comes up, you guys will be alerted to it. And don't forget to like the video and comment on the video. All interactions with us helps us continue to grow, and we appreciate your support. Now to the show. Welcome back, everybody, to Buckeye Bar Guys here on Buckeye Bar Talk. I'm Mike.
And I'm John.
Tonight's date is Friday, November 26th, and we are on the eve of the big game against those Wolverines, the Skunk Weasels, whatever you want to call them from up north. The Buckeyes are in town. They left this afternoon. They've arrived in Ann Arbor. Had some different rumors going around the wonderful internets this evening on CJ Stroud's health. Looks like everything is okay as he was there. So that is good. So,
yeah, nothing to worry about with that one. So all that's left is just go beat the crap out of those guys.
Yeah. Man, so basically our just the run through tonight, it's going to be all them. We're going to kind of talk about maybe just some of our memories of the game and big games that we've seen over the years. And then we'll talk about this game in particular, just how we think everything is going to set up. And then we will finish it how we finish it. We will go through our who we think the players of the game will be and what our final score predictions are. So we're going to get started. John, I mean, this is a big rivalry game.
The biggest. You know, this is the biggest in sport.
We've talked about in years. You know, we kind of came to the Buckeyes in 1995, and it wasn't a good one to start off with. So, I do feel all the Buckeye fans' pains, the ones that remember the 90s and try not to get too cocky now because that just sits in their head. I get that because we lived that. That's when we started, and so, but we've been dominant now for 2 decades, and it just seems like that. You know, I mean, I this game could very easily be a war tomorrow. I mean, it's football. I said on Twitter tonight that football is a game that anything can happen. These aren't championship games in football. Don't get played over 7-game series where the best team comes out on top. You know, this is anything can happen. You got snow possibly coming in. You got cold weather. I saw the Fox crew at halftime of the Texas game today. It looks like it's damn cold up there. So it's going to be, I think it could be a big time war. Just what's your thoughts on the rivalry? I mean, so many big games over the years.
Well, I mean, let's start with that first entry that you and I watched most of it. Because if I remember correctly, I think Dad had us out raking leaves.
That was leaf day. That was leaf day.
Okay. So 1995. We had watched the Browns for a couple years. I mean, the Browns were already gone by that point. So they were in Baltimore, going to be in Baltimore. So we started watching Ohio State. I believe was it the Pigskin or Kickoff Classic or
it was one? Whatever. Yeah, it was whatever one was in New Jersey, but they were playing Boston College.
Right. And so we were like, oh, it's Ohio State. Let's watch the game. And then I think they kind of beat the crap out of Boston College. That was the first game of the year. And then it just went on and on and on. And that offense was amazing. And it's like, I mean, you go into that game and this is our first season watching them. So it's like, no one's going to beat this team. Like this, you know, this is my team from Ohio because I'll preference if we didn't say we lived in Connecticut at the time. We had moved up there. So this is my team from Ohio kicking the crap out of everybody. And they're going to go beat this team on leaf raking day. And yeah, we were in for a surprise because and I can't remember how to say the first name. So it's Tim Biakabatuka, whose name is synonymous with Dream Killer, ran all over Ohio State that day.
Yeah.
And that was a horrible introduction to the rivalry.
And like you said, I mean, with us living in Connecticut, and most people any of the younger fans that don't realize this, even back then in the 90s, which seems like a more modern era, they only televised a couple college football. I mean, it wasn't like what our father grew up with, where you might get a couple Buckeye games televised through the year, even living in Ohio, that mostly they were radio games and maybe ABC. ABC always had the Michigan game and maybe one or two other big games that year. Now, living in Connecticut, we didn't get any. We were lucky. The New Jersey game was a national kickoff, and then they played some big games that year. So they played Notre Dame, which ended up being a national game. They played Penn State, which was highly ranked game that year. But I really think that was it. A lot of it is just, you find scores. I mean, maybe you saw one other game. I don't remember, but
yeah,
the internet was a thing back then. So you just kind of found scores on the internet or you looked it up in the paper. But there wasn't a lot to, it's not like you get to watch every single game, but Michigan was a televised game. And like we said, our dad worked Saturdays, for whatever reason, he was home that day. And, he kind of fell just kind of, over the years of, the Buckeyes not being great in the 80s or not being as good as they were in the 70s, in the 80s. And then he went work for a job that he had to work 6 days of the week. So he worked most Saturdays. And, for whatever reason, he was off that Saturday and we had a huge plot of woods behind our house. And we used to get tons and tons and tons of leaves. So he was home and that was leaf raking day. And I guess kept on running in and outside. So we weren't great helpers that day, but Ohio State. And when you kind of look back at the final score, it wasn't as bad as as you remember it as a young kid. Ohio State kind of made it.
Wasn't it like 31-23 or something? It was closer. It wasn't that bad. But yeah, every time we ran inside, it was like Biaka Patuka ran for another touchdown or another first down. I mean, it was horrible.
And then you dealt with the following year, which was, Sean Springs slipping a very close game, and Michigan scores a touchdown off of that. Ty Streets. And then the following year is Michigan's national championship year. And, that was just kind of the bad run that John Cooper had. Finally, in 98, we moved back home to Ohio. We witnessed them, even though we had to watch them lose to Michigan State, a couple weeks prior to that. We did get to watch them beat Michigan that year. But you realize once Tressel becomes head coach and then into the Meyer era that if either one of those guys, and now you can probably, hopefully after tomorrow, this will be his second game. You can add Ryan Day to that list. That if any of those coaches would have been coaches besides John Cooper, we probably would have went 3-0 and through that stretch, and Michigan probably would have never won the 97 national title because none of them were bad. None of them were blowouts.
That was I believe that was a 1-score game too. That was within a touchdown. That was like a 5-point game or something like that. So that one wasn't bad. 96, we lose by 4?
Yeah.
They're 4 or 5, right?
Yeah, something like that. I think we're winning like 9-7.
9-6 maybe. So they beat us 13-9.
Yeah.
Is it the same exact score as what we beat them in 02? Or did we beat? No, we got 2 touchdowns 02, right? We won 14-9.
Yeah, we beat them 14-9.
So, yeah, if you think about it, our first 5-6 years watching this rivalry, we see one win, and then we've seen 17 out of 19 or something like that.
Yeah. And we were at we were at the 02 game, and you go back and watch the 02 team. We tried to watch it, several years after that. It was out. We tried watching it, I think, one time after the 06 game. Now, the 06 game is fireworks after fireworks after fireworks. That's, well known as one of the best Ohio State Michigan games of all time. Mm-hmm. But, the 02 game, it's a nail biter when you're in the stands. And when you go try to watch it later, it's a pretty dull game for most of the game. But, you go back and think of it. I just think about, Maurice Clarett, he had a big game. Will Allen's huge interception finished the game off. And then just the wildness that happened after that game when the fans all rushed the field. let's party, Columbus. That's when you actually watch the game on TV. I mean, we didn't get to see that on TV because we were at the game, but I mean, that's one of Musburger's famous Ohio State lines. I mean, probably not as famous as Holy Buckeye, but I mean, that's right up there
though.
Says,
yep, same season party, too.
Columbus.
What's your least favorite Michigan touchdown in the rivalry? Which one just pisses you off the most?
I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, I obviously never watched the 91 game, so I can't come on here and say the Heisman pose. Charles Woodson, that kickoff return is awful just because, I mean, it's stupid for Cooper.
Why are you kicking it to him? that was mine, actually, so that's kind of funny.
Solidifies the Heisman. And then kind of like maybe more recent times, I'm trying to think, like nothing really kind of ticked me off so much. Maybe a little bit. No, I would say trying to think throughout the years. I mean, 2011, we had some. I didn't get to watch a lot of the 2011 game. There was some
family stuff.
That was a different thing. We had a family issue that day, but so I mean, there's just different things that have come up. I think the thing that drives me, even though it doesn't end up being a touchdown, is when DeMario drops that freaking
in 18, and they let them come.
And game's now close. Game's not close up to that point in the first half, and then the game goes into halftime very close.
Yeah, we're up we 2 scores, but then they scored 2 times within 20 seconds or something like that.
Yeah. So I mean that was kind of a weird one. I mean, then you kind of think about, again, they're not so much touchdowns. I mean, Ted Ginn, very uncharacteristic of him dropping 2 punts, and even though he gets both of them back, but I mean
in
the 05 game, but I mean he just that game is because of those awful field position off those 2, and then that game ends up being a lot closer than probably it should have been, and so just weird things like that here and there. I mean, I would have to definitely say it's the Woodson because this is how dominant they've been, and since then.
Now, what's your favorite touchdown for the
touchdown?
Buckeyes?
Now there's a lot I could pick on from here. I love the Curtis Samuel touchdown. I mean, that was just because I don't like the fact that game is as close as it is. The offense was such crap that year, but the defense held us in that game as long as possible. I would have to say probably my favorite touchdown, and it's a tie, and it's from the 06 game, both of them. It's the 2 rushing touchdowns. That was the vaunted Michigan run defense that everybody's talking about. Beanie goes for 50 plus in the first half, and then Pittman, the game starts getting very tight, and it's 28-25, I believe. Michigan, I mean, they score a touchdown and a field goal, or it's 28-24, and I mean, we're up 28-14 at the half, and game's getting really, really, really tight, and then Pittman goes on a 50-pluser, and so I would say those are my favorite touchdowns because how just wild that game was.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's really my favorite, but one of my more memorable ones, and this is kind of going to be an odd one to select, but 2004 Ted Ginn's punt return touchdown.
I love that one.
And it's just it was kind of a lost season, and they were better than Ohio State, or at least they were ranked higher than Ohio State. And so I'm a freshman at OU, and we get our common room in our dorms. We set up the TV there, and we're all watching it. And excuse my language coming up, but it was just when it happens, holy shit, we're going to beat the fuck out of these guys. I just couldn't believe it. Pardon me, part of the French, but I was just oh my God, we're going to kick their ass today.
Yeah. Another one that kind of gets forgotten because they won the national title the next year is Jonathan Wells' big touchdown run in 01. I mean, the 01 victory is just because Tressel calls it. I mean,
he beats them on the road.
He beats them on the road. And they don't have that great of season. It's not a great first season for him, but it's what catapult ends up, you think about it. I mean, even though they lose the bowl game, that kind of belts them into where they are the following year. They have a pretty good momentum coming into the season. They really learned how to win on the road that day in Michigan. And I mean, it was a 4th and 1. Michigan has the whole line of scrimmage crowded, and Jonathan Wells just breaks through and he's gone. And it's like a 50-yard touchdown run. And I mean, that was a huge one.
But even at the end of that year, I mean, Tressel's team, they played much closer to South Carolina than what, Cooper's team did the year before.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we talked about it. The 0-2 game's just kind of a special game to us.
That's probably still my favorite win.
0-3. I mean, 0-3 kills me. I mean, 0-3 is probably the worst loss I've witnessed since those mid 90s. I mean, like I said, we didn't watch much of 11. 11 was such a weird season. 0-3 sucked because Ohio State wins that game. They're going back to the national title, and every LSU beats Oklahoma that year, but we would have been playing Oklahoma, and that was an overrated Oklahoma team. We would have beat them. They would have won their second straight national title. So, I mean,
Yeah. I was working that game. I didn't get to see it at all.
Yeah.
That was like my only Ohio State Michigan game, now that I think about it, that I didn't get to at least watch some of it. Because in 11, I watched some of that game. But yeah, that one I didn't watch any of it. I was 17 or something. I was out doing carts at Acme, and so that was before you had phones that could connect to the internet and you could be listening to that. So I was supposed to be on carts, and I was sneaking into my car and listening to the radio.
Yeah,
I didn't get caught. I mean, it sucked regardless, though.
Yeah. So. Probably, I mean, just your biggest memory overall.
It's got to be 0-2 because I was, present for that. It was a hell of a game.
The Will Elliott interception it's one of the greatest feelings ever.
I don't know if you remember how cold that damn game was.
Oh, yeah.
And by the hot chocolate was so mass produced by the end of it, it was just like, it was just like brown water. I don't even know how to describe it. It was just like they didn't have enough mix for the water anymore. So I think they were rationing it off, and it was gross.
Now, starting to kind of transition to, I agree with that 0-2 is just a fair, but try to transition into this game. Now, this game, they both have a loss where they were both undefeated in 06, but this is feeling like 06 all over again. The hype that has really happened this week, because this has the most riding on it, even though, you didn't have a Big Ten championship game then. I mean, there's still a spot where the winner of this game could be tripped up next week, but
sure.
This is definitely the most hype I felt in this game since probably 06, I would say.
Yeah, I do think that it does feel a little bit more intense than what 16 did, even though wasn't that 2 versus 3?
Yeah, it was up there. It was just that was a big one.
But this one does have a different feel to it. 18, we kept Michigan out of the playoff, and I didn't even realize that. We were hosed that year, and I understand how bad like the defense looked at different times, but do you realize we were ranked 10th in that game with one loss? Ohio State was ranked 10th just because we lost by 29 to Purdue.
And that's what I always say to like the people that, the Buckeye fans, some of the old timers that, I want this game to be better and all of this stuff and blah, 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 and everything. And, I've always said, I said on Twitter again this week, not my job. My job is to root for the Buckeyes. And do I want the Big Ten to show up? Yeah, absolutely. I want the Big Ten to show up, but it doesn't matter whether I root for them or not. And when tomorrow beat a one-loss Michigan team and make sure they can't go to the playoffs, going to feel so much better than, these couple years where we've beaten 4-loss and 5-loss Michigan teams. Sure, I will admit that 06 game was, just a very memorable game because they were undefeated. I loved knocking them out of the playoffs in 2018. But that gave us no bump. And that's where everybody says, if a better Michigan team, what if we needed that bump and stuff like that? Well, 2018,
that wasn't
should have
enough.
been our bump, and we got no bump. And so, and that was a revenge tour when everybody was saying, everybody and their brother, including a lot of Ohio State journalists that ended up eating crow after that game and have all swore that they will never pick against Ohio State again in that game, because so many of them did pick against Ohio State in that game, and Ohio State lit them up. And,
right.
They gave up 39 points, but they lit them up. They were the dominant team that day.
Well, and we just kind of talked about it too. I mean, because I know like it was close going into the half, but it was close going in the half because DeMario McCall has the worst fielded kick return that I've ever seen in my life, Yeah. And I'm not trying to like throw DeMario under the bus, but I don't think that was ever something he was really that well suited for. And they kept trying to make it happen. But if he just fields that ball cleanly, I mean, you're going in the half, you're up, more than one score, and you just keep riding that wave, and you do what you did in the second half to begin with, but it was much closer just because of that. So, I mean, again, up in the first half, we got up 2 scores in the first half in that game.
Yeah. So there's been no proof to me that any bump from Michigan is ever going to get us anywhere that we want to go. So, I mean, that's always been like my thought on that. And like I said, yeah, winning tomorrow is going to feel a lot better than winning in maybe years past. But to me, it's also, I don't need to win by a lot of points tomorrow. I think we could win by a lot of points tomorrow, but the one thing Harbaugh definitely got right is that, he said at the beginning of this week that, this is the start of the playoffs now.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a playoff field tomorrow. Now, if there's a blowout one way or the other, the blowout's going to be in favor of the Buckeyes. So, I mean, I don't think anybody's going to argue that point with it. Even the hardest core Michigan fan, if they're being honest, if this game gets out of hand, it's going to get out of hand in the favor of Ohio State. So I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. If Michigan keeps this close, this game's going to be a war, and it's going to kind of feel like some of the old time games and stuff. And
right. I don't see, and you correct me if you think I'm wrong or if you see a path. I don't see any way that Michigan does anything creative enough on offense that with the fixes Ohio State has made, that this game can get out of control in favor of the Wolverines, unless we're talking about CJ Stroud just having the most uncharacteristic game of his short career and just, turning the ball over left and right. Like, I feel like Michigan almost has to play a perfect game and they could still lose. Now, I mean, and I think Ohio State could make a few mistakes and still win. And I don't want to be too arrogant about it, too overconfident, but I don't see a path where their offense can do enough to get away from Ohio State. Like, if Michigan wins, I think it's like a last possession in the fourth quarter.
I believe it was last night. Yeah, I think it was last night during the Ole Miss Mississippi game. The guys that were doing the halftime show, and I forget who it was, but he was saying that honestly he thinks Michigan needs to get they basically need to be perfect on offense, score. They need to score on offense. They need to establish their running game, which has been very hard against Ohio State after the first 2 games of the year, and they need probably a special teams and or a defensive touchdown. And they said they might need both of them.
Yeah. I agree with that. And Ohio State, I mean, and everyone talks about Michigan's run, their running attack with Haskins and Corum and the kid, is it Walker?
Yeah, I think so. But they don't run as well as Ohio State does. They don't stop the run as well as Ohio State does. So it's not like some decisive advantage that some of their fans and some people think that they have. They don't. They're worse in all the running categories. After first 2 games of the year, I mean, Ohio State over the last 9, they're only giving up 75 yards on the ground a game. And so, I mean, I heard that on Big Ten Network today when I was watching some of the, the Nebraska game that, so this is going to be no picnic. There's no guarantee that, that Michigan's going to be able to run the ball on them. And if Michigan can't run the ball on them on defense, I don't think that they are going to be able to beat Ohio State because They got some good receivers, sure, but I mean, receivers have never killed Ohio State this year. It's because Ohio State has locked them very down good on the outside. And I get it; they have a good tight end too. It's just, to me, one tight end is never going to beat Ohio State now, unless your whole game is going to end up focusing around the tight ends, like like Iowa in 17, where that was, they knew that they had a mismatch but they had three tight ends and they were rotating them in. They were playing a lot of double tight end sets. I just don't see Michigan be able to do that tomorrow. And, and even this defense is a lot different, that where Ohio State's defense can play more zone if they have to.
But don't make Cade look like anything better than what he is. And, it's like one of the areas that we've struggled on this year has been letting quarterbacks convert on 3rd and long, because in our zones, we're not playing the man within the zone. We're just we're falling flat foot. Like our linebackers are falling flat foot in their zone, and they're getting stuck there, just sitting there waiting. And then the tight ends are moving to a soft spot in that zone, and the quarterback's hitting them because they're just, the line didn't get home on that play, and we're making it too easy on them. So, I mean, you gotta, try to do something mirroring the tight end, man, or just like run man with him while you're in that zone. That's fine, but you can't just like fall asleep, in your area of the zone, and they just find a seam and they just, get themselves set right there. So hopefully I explained that well. I don't know, but you know what I'm trying to say is that our linebackers get stuck on where they're supposed to be in the zone, and they just let these guys work to the soft spots, and the quarterbacks are just hitting them, and they're extending 3rd and longs way too much.
Yeah. That has been the biggest thing that, Ohio State really needs to work on. And that is a concern. Now, like, my opinion on this game is that right here where we're talking about their offense versus our defense, this is actually where this game is going to be won tomorrow, because, to me, their defense, I know this is supposed to be the week versus the week is what we're talking about right now. And the strengths on the other side. But to me, Ohio State's going to get their point. Michigan's defense doesn't become a threat to Ohio State's offense unless Michigan offense can get out in front of our defense and put some pressure on our offense, that our offense has to be perfect. And our offense can be perfect, but over the last couple weeks and kind of before that stretch in there where they had two rough games, you didn't have. They've had a lot of opportunities where they didn't need to necessarily, they could just go out and play football. And because, the defense was doing fine and stuff like that, even those games against Penn State and Nebraska, there was parts in those games where they didn't really feel like, I wasn't really too worried because the defense was playing fine in both those games. And now if Michigan's able to get some points and move the ball and kind of get our defense pushed back, now, the offense is going to have the offense. You do get a little worried, especially with a younger offense and different spots of them being younger. And the most important spot, the quarterback, is that you don't want them to start pushing stuff because they're feeling like they have to keep on pace.
Right. Forcing things.
Michigan. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's where this game first gets won. Now, if Ohio State's defense shuts down the running game, their outside receivers can't get out of that. Yeah, and maybe they get a couple completions across the middle of the field. It's not going to worry me, because then, to me, now all the threat falls onto the Michigan defense. And now the Michigan defense are the ones that have to be perfect, because they're like, our offense ain't playing that good, so we can't let Ohio State score on us, or we have to minimize the scores. If that gets into that part of the game, Ohio State's going to do fine against them. And Ohio State will start – and I get it. This is a much more complex secondary than we were going up against Michigan than we went up against in years past. But Ohio State, if it's Michigan's defense starting to try to force stuff, Ohio State will start scoring.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I do think we're going to run into a little bit, like you said, it's a little bit more complex. I mean, it's zone also. So it's not going to be like, when we were torching Don Brown. So I think they're okay letting Ohio State get to the red zone. So Ryan Day is going to have to figure out a way, score touchdowns, don't kick field goals. I think he will. My thing personally, though, is I've watched a little bit of Michigan, not a ton this year, but a good amount. And they love rushing those two ends upfield. And I would just do whatever I could to exploit that with Trevion Henderson. So I think maybe, like a swing pass past one of them over to the side, or just, up the gut with him, whatever you can. Just something, though. I think that those guys take themselves out of position against the run, and I think you can just feast on those defensive tackles all day long.
Yeah, if they're going to come up field hard, basically what you kind of do is you start kind of running some off tackles, start running some draws. I mean, we haven't really ran any draws this year. I mean, that could be deadly against them, where you force just one of your offensive tackles on whatever side you're running to is just to push them out of the way, keep them to the outside, and then you run a draw up into that off tackle where the gap has been left open, and you pull somebody, you pull one of the guards, and so anybody that tries to fill, you get in front of them, and you kill them that way. And those are good types of plays to try to use their strengths. What they're trying to do, they're just trying to come up field, and they try to work back to the quarterback. So something the tackles need to definitely be aware of on the passing downs, but Stroud needs to be aware of that too. They're coming up hard upfield and then working their way back to you. So you need to work into when you're working your way up, you need to kind of work into your and the spots that they vacated, and then find your open guy. And the one thing we've seen all year against Ohio State is when Stroud's able to find the open guy, he's deadly with that. And somebody on Ohio State's offense is going to be open. I don't care what defense they think they're playing right now. Michigan is not, their secondary ain't equipped to cover three guys at once. And these four guys have records out there. And, it's pretty deadly. And Stroud, when he finds his guys, he just has to stay in composure of himself, which he's done really well for the most of the year.
Yeah. And, we saw it against Michigan State from Michigan, and I think it's been a problem all year is with their substitutions. They get caught against teams that run tempo that they're not set, and I think Ryan Day is going to do.
He's going to find a spot,
a little bit of
especially early in that game where he's going to find a spot to do it, and he might not do it right from the beginning, but there's going to be points where he's just going to guess right, and kind of like how he did against Clemson, where he just got him on just a few opportunities in the last year in that game where they came up quick to the line of scrimmage to, he did huddling instead of doing, and then he came up fast to the line of scrimmage and wouldn't let them get set. Well, they're going to do similar, but opposite here, where they're just they might be doing some things. They might not be going fast, Ohio State will substitute, let them substitute, all that stuff. But there's going to be certain points where he wants to take shots and stuff like that. And, and there's always spots on the field where Ryan Day likes to take his shots, and that's going to be the opportunity where he knows he could get possibly a free play because they all have too many guys on this field. And 40-yard line or whatever.
Right.
Now just tempo and go up top. And if we don't get it, we're probably going to get a 5-yard penalty out of it. So
yeah, exactly. So I think we'll see some of that. I think the offense is going to be fine. Might not get too many long touchdown passes, but I don't know.
I do think I think this is definitely going to be a game that's going to test CJ's patience.
Mm-hmm.
I did hear an interesting stat today. Now they've not given up a lot of pressure on CJ all year, but he's got like a 70% completion percentage where he's been completely clean. Now, the few times that he has gotten pressure in his face, he's had a 53% completion percentage. So it does drop some. So I think Michigan is going to be aware of that. I think we're going to see a lot of different things from them, dropping guys under pressure and blitzing guys. And, and I think that's going to be, so CJ is going to see a lot of that. He's going to see a lot of different coverages. He's going to see different pressures at certain sides. And then he's going to see times that it's just our defense line pressuring. So, he's going to have to work a lot of stuff out in his head. He's a young guy, and, this is going to be the best defense he's played all year. And so it'll be interesting how he holds that, but he's also going to have 3 pissed off receivers.
They're going to be mad.
that are, none of them made the Biletnikoff, and I think they're going to use that to their advantage.
Dave's going to be mad about that. Hartline's going to be mad about that. I mean, yeah, you're not wrong about that. You're going to have 3 pissed off, really good wide receivers. And I know Michigan can't do anything to stop Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah. Who they got in the middle? There's no team right now who has anybody. Possibly maybe Georgia has somebody that can cover him in the middle of the field, but Michigan don't. They don't got
anybody that can cover him. They don't got their Viper this year, or at least not one that's as good as what they had in the past.
And I don't know if they have all the different. Do they have the awareness and the type of athletes in their back seven to do the different things that Garrett Wilson's going to try on them? I mean, they're starting to line him up everywhere, and
not if they're not set. If we catch them, off, it'll be like when we caught Oregon off in the beginning of that game. Like, if we catch them that they're not ready for it because they're confused, they can't stop Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave.
Yeah. I think Trevion and Mayan could have a big game in this. You talked about this earlier that we've gained more yards than they're gaining. The vaunted their rushing attack, but we're also shutting them down more than what they're shutting teams down.
Right.
So
I mean, Henderson has, and it's only 30 more yards, but he has 30 more yards on Haskins with 60 less carries.
Yeah, and. The last couple of weeks that they have been getting a lot of yards per play, between both him and Mayan. And I think that could be something, especially if Michigan, it'll be interesting to see how they're trying to play to start the game. If they are definitely playing that, if they are trying to do what Northwestern did and they're just going to use their 2 stud ends, I don't like their defensive tackle. So I think that if they try to come rushing up hard, shut down, or coming down hard to shut down our run, and they're going to knock everybody else back into zones to stop the thing, well, I think Ryan Day will be willing very early in this game to try to force them out of that and, to open it up more for the receivers by giving it to Henderson and giving it to Mayan Williams. And if we get into the red zone this time, I think our offensive line is going to be ready to break holes open to let our running backs go. Okay, if you're going to go guard the end zone, then we'll take the 10 yards you're giving us, and you try to tackle Henderson at the goal line,
right,
or tackle Mayan Williams at the goal line, and so I could see that with assuming the way Ohio State played a lot last week with really spreading it out onto the far hash marks. I could really see them doing a lot of that this week. But instead of maybe motioning in out of it, they might keep that on, forcing Michigan to stay spread out with their defense and leaving bigger gaps for the running backs to really start exploiting that. Kind of when you think about it, kind of a variation of how Urban used to do it, that
right,
spread them out far. And maybe CJ won't be running with it, but that's what Urban did with JT and with Braxton and with Carlos Hyde and Ezekiel Elliott. I will spread you way out, and then I will use the gaps you're leaving to kill you in the running game. Yeah,
definitely. I can see that happening for sure. I do think that Michigan, I think they're going into this our only chance is we got to stop these receivers. And I think that's just going to leave them very vulnerable against the run.
Yeah. And we saw what Walker did to them. And if they are going to be, and Walker was their stud player. So if they were having a hard time against Walker, like I said, their defensive ends are really good, but defensive ends can be schemed out of running football game, out of a running football scheme.
If that's the way they play, if they don't adjust to, the run scheme, if they're just running upfield all the time because that's all they're trying to do is rush the passer every play. Yeah.
Yeah. So
just try to run past DeJuan Jones and Nicholas Petit-Frere like that. Those mountains they'll get you out of the play right away.
Yeah. And they don't really have to do much. They literally just have to keep the guy to the outside, just push him out to the outside, and that leaves a natural running lane right there. Yeah. And those type of runs are beautiful when they hit right, because, it's almost if a linebacker ain't there to fill it quick enough, that is like a guaranteed 10-yard run. And
and if just it makes me think of, Northwestern's approach last year against Ohio State in that Big Ten championship game. If that was Trey Henderson instead of Trey Sermon, I mean, he would have had 430 yards instead of 330 yards. So, I mean, obviously that's not taking anything away from Trey Sermon. It's just Henderson. I mean, that guy, if you let him get to the second level all day long, he's going to kill you.
Yeah. Agreed. So I think we're going to have some pissed off receivers. I think we're going to have opportunities for the running game to really get going. And if all that stuff starts hitting, Stroud's going to be fine in this game.
Oh, yeah.
And on the other side of the ball, Mcnamera, he kind of made some comments earlier in the week about, if they really want to show up against our defense.
Take advantage
of our defense. And so kind of a ballsy statement, because I think our defensive line's far more complete than their defensive line. I don't care if maybe they have the two best players, quote unquote. I mean, I think we will see a lot after this game, because I would have an argument that I think Zach Harrison and Tyreek Smith, maybe not they might not have the numbers, but they're just as good as ends. And there may be more complete ends that can shut down the run better than those two.
And they started a little slower on the year, but I mean, I don't know if they're not as, hot as those two are right now.
But I know we are far more complete in the middle. And so if Michigan can't get their running game going, they'll slow this game down some. And Ohio State's offense is hitting where Ohio State's offense needs to be hitting, and they're scoring touchdowns. Mcnamera might regret making that statement earlier in the week, because, he's going to get hit a few times. Yeah. And let's see him make some of these completions that, it always seems like he's got guys wide open. Well, I don't know how wide open some of his receivers are going to be against Denzel Burke and Ken Brown and Seven Banks, and because they've pretty much shut down almost everybody that they've went up against this year. And, and the better the defensive line does, I'm not as worried about the middle of the field as much then, because, I don't know if Cade McNamara can make those throws with pressure in his face.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right. So I think you got any more you want to talk about or we want to move into our players of the game and score predictions and finish the show up? I think we hit the kind of our thoughts about the actual game pretty good.
Yeah. I'm good going into players of the game.
All right. Who are you going with on offense?
I'm going to cheat. I've never done this before, but
cheater.
This is going to be a position. Whichever Ohio State running back gets some more touches is going to be the player of the game. And I believe whichever one gets the more touches is going to go over 200 yards.
It could be, that could be the thing where Maya Williams actually gets more touches, though, but Henderson gets some big ones. And,
yeah, that's true. And I'm making a bold statement there, because Henderson could get 200 yards on, 8 carries, but wouldn't that be something?
I think we are going for easily 250 plus on the ground in this game.
I think so too.
I think they're both going to have big games, and they both could get over 100 yards. I definitely could see that. I think Michigan is going to do everything they can to stop those receivers. As this game goes on, though, it's going to be a receiver that's going to break this game wide open. I think it could be tight. I'm going to predict a tight score because I've done it the last few weeks and it's worked. But I could see where the running game, and Chris Olave gets a big touchdown, wide open down the middle of the field against their safeties, just like last week against Michigan State. And that's what I'm going with. I'm going to have to say Chris Olave, his last Michigan game, the first time we ever saw that man, he had a great game against Michigan, and his last Michigan game, it's going to be a great game.
Could come full circle. That'd be nice.
All right, your defensive guy.
So I don't know if this guy's going to end up with like the best stats by the end of the game, but I think his impact early in the game is really what's going to be the difference. I'm going to say it's going to be Steel Chambers. Michigan is what Michigan is. Harbaugh is what Harbaugh is. He'll always go back to who he is. So he's going to try to pound the ball. He's going to try to think that he's going to intimidate. He's going to be more aggressive than Ohio State, beat them up at the line of scrimmage. Haskins is going to get a couple handoffs early in the game. Steel Chambers is going to shut him down in the hole. And, I can't think of the tight end's name. Is it All? He's going
Alt or All.
Okay. So he's going to get, they're going to go for him because Harbaugh is Harbaugh. He's going to go to his tight ends or fullbacks because he still has fullbacks, and Steel Chambers is going to pick the ball off or have a pass breakup, something. So he's going to make enough plays early in the game to get the ball back to Ohio State that Ohio State is going to score and get Michigan out of their comfort zone.
Now I'm going to cheat here. This is my cheating time.
Okay.
I think I'm going to say the defensive ends as a whole. I think at the end of this game, the Ohio State defensive ends are going to have a better game than the Michigan defensive ends. I think that Cade Mcnamera at points in this game is going to be running for his life. And I think Michigan's defense is going to do good at different times against Ohio State's offense. And I think Stroud will get confused at different times. But I think that Ohio State, like I said, this game is going to be won on Ohio State's defense against Michigan's offense, because that is going to be where the game is going to get forced upon the strong part of the other team. And if I think Ohio State's defense is going to show up, these defensive ends are going to start getting Mcnamara off target, and that is going to start putting a lot of pressure on Michigan's defense to pitch the perfect game against Ohio State's offense. And I just think that I could see a few sacks. Not saying that their guys aren't going to get the Stroud, and I think that the Buckeyes offense line might give up a couple sacks in this game, but I could see this being a 4 or 5 sack game for the Ohio State defensive ends. And I think if we get to that point, then it's Michigan could be in for a very long day.
Yeah, I definitely can see that.
All right, your score. What are you thinking?
I'm going back and forth with this in my head all week. Like, does Michigan have an offense that's really going to score? And then it's like, yeah, they got players. They're going to score a couple times against Ohio State. Can Ohio State get to 50 against Michigan's defense? A lot of that's predicated on the pass. I don't think, maybe they can't get that high. Is this going to be a 1 possession game? Is this into the fourth quarter? Ultimately, though, I think Michigan can hang around for about a quarter with Ohio State, maybe quarter and a half, something like that. Ohio State's offense is way too good. They're just so much better than Michigan. Their defense, I think what we've seen with Ohio State's defense, how it's improved. And I know you had like slip ups like Purdue, and you still gave up like huge plays here and there against Nebraska. But I think what the defense has shown ultimately is they're still the best players on the field out of the two defenses. That they're still the most athletic between the two defenses that are playing each other. They're still the most athletic unit that's there. So I'm saying 42-17.
I'm
easy cover.
Yeah, I'm actually so I was at same for Michigan, one less touchdown. I was going to say 35-17. I think it's going to be a closer first half, like you said. I think Ohio State's going to score somewhere before halftime, and they're going to be up somewhere like 21-10, 21-14, something like that. And then, they'll score the next 2 touchdowns and give up a field goal, maybe maybe a touchdown if it's 21-10. But they're going to be the dominant team in the second half, and there's going to be a part. I don't know if the well is going to completely burst open and this is going to be a 60 to 20 whatever game, like basically we had 2 years ago, or a 60 something to 30 something game like we had 3 years ago. But the well will break some, and the dam will break some, and I think I don't think Michigan can score 35 points against Ohio State's defense, but I do think Ohio State can score 35 points against Michigan's defense, and that's where it's going to lie. And if Michigan can't ultimately keep up with Ohio State, they have no prayer of winning. And Ohio State will get to 5 touchdowns, and that's just the way I think about it. And
I mean, Day's got to score in the end zone or the red zone.
He does. I think they will. There will be some bend and break things from the Michigan defense, but I think Ryan Day has come up with some stuff over the next couple of weeks, and it might be the running backs. This might be where they really get in the offensive lineman's face and be like, if they're going to back up and try to play a zone defense where they're going to play a tight zone in the end zone, well, get out in front of these guys and knock some guys on their butts and let Trevion and Mayan run behind you and go get 6. And those 2 games, Mayan, did he play in them? Was he not playing in them, or Penn State, Nebraska?
He didn't play in either of those, I don't think.
Yes. Well,
no, wait.
A factor.
Teague wasn't in. Teague didn't play in Penn State for sure. Teague was out. Maybe Mayan did play, but they didn't really get him going.
They didn't really get him going. Well, I think it'll be different in this game, and Mayan could be a difference maker down in the red zone, and that could be where you get some smash mouth football and let him bulldoze somebody into the end zone. And so I'm not too worried about that. I think so. Yeah, 35-17, but Ohio State breaking the doors off of them and beating them by five plus scores wouldn't surprise me. And I think if Ohio State gets going, if a lot's going to come down in this game into the first quarter. This first quarter is tight, and then the game, I don't think will be necessarily close, but it will be a tighter game. It will be a 35-17 game. If they somehow do, maybe it doesn't have to be necessarily what they did to Michigan State, but if Ohio State's up 14-0 going into the second quarter, Michigan's in a lot of trouble.
Oh, absolutely.
So they're in a lot of trouble at that point.
Well, especially because at that point you're running out of time, and even if it is just the second quarter, I mean, that offense, that's just, like I said, Harbaugh is Harbaugh. If you're down 14-0 against Ryan Day heading into the second quarter, you're starting to run out of time, and you need to do something, and you got to get out of your comfort zone and try to make big plays in the air.
No.
And that's not him, and that's not Cade McNamara.
No, that's not them at all.
And I don't know if that's a good point to bring the kid in, because you saw what he did under pressure against Michigan State.
Yeah. And I don't know if Harbaugh is willing to go there. I think that he likes in the position that he's kind of doing him. I don't know. Part of me thinks he gets kind of nervous that if he turns the games over to this kid, and if they're already if Ohio State's already way out in front, that could be a really demoralizing thing, because Ohio State's defense will start teeing off on him, and he will take some hits at that point.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, let's get on out of here. Get the show up. It's gonna be a big one. Our first Buckeye. Obviously, it's not our first Michigan game, but it's our first Buckeye Bar Talk Michigan game since they took that away from us last year. I do wonder how much that's going to stick in some Ohio State players' heads. That I mean, some of those big time, the Jonathan Coopers of the world, they didn't get to have their final Michigan game. So I wonder if some of that, some of these guys know those guys.
Win one for the Coop.
Yeah, for Hilliard, Coop, all those guys that they could have had one last home game and against Michigan, and we have to play back-to-back Ohio State Michigan games in Ann Arbor.
Well, pardon the language again, but let's go kick the shit out of these guys tomorrow.
Yeah,
I can't wait for it. So thank you everyone for stopping in tonight at the Buckeye Bar. I'm John.
I'm Mike.
OH.
IO. Go Buckeyes.
Beat Michigan.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's Buckeye Bar Guys on Buckeye Bar Talk. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit that all notifications bell so you see when new content is added. And please remember to like and share so we can grow our audience. Don't be afraid to comment. We want to know what you're thinking, and we want to know what content to add for you guys. OH.
IO.